I'd like to introduce to us now our speaker for this afternoon. So our speaker, she is a graduate from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, with a degree in creative writing. And she started her media career at MTV Asia, and she went on to write and produce for television and advertising agencies. In 2011, upon returning to Davao City, she made a career shift to be an educator. She was the former Media and Information Literacy Subject Area Head at the Ateneo de Davao University. And now she currently heads the Media Educators of Mindanao as the chairperson. So she's also an award-winning short filmmaker and a columnist at Mindanao Times. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our next speaker, Miss Virgilind Palarca.
Hello, good afternoon. So, yes, we survived this morning. It wasn't a violent technical problem. Okay, we were able to diffuse that right away. No? So that's how we are. This is what we do in life. I remember when I was working in events, no, and as I was a writer before the events, and as the speaker, the MC is talking, the director wants me to change some lines on the teleprompter. So hinahabol mo yung MC na nag-encode ka ng script, no, while they're talking. But that's how it is in media production. And so here I am now as an educator trying to share what I've learned. And I've been privileged to learn a lot, no, about conflict sensitivity and peace building through Forum ZFD, which is the mother organization of um, Media Educators of Mindanao since 2013. So allow me to share my screen. Okay. So I hope everybody's ready to listen. So just quick recap. No? So this morning we learned about conflict sensitivity, conflict sensitive journalism, how it differs from peace journ, no? And peace journ being quite parang being told to be subjective because it already has an agenda, which is to promote peace, diba? So, but conflict sensitive journalism says, no, we should analyze first. But the whole point of analysis is because we want to know where the root problem is so that we can convene, no, all stakeholders for communication. And that's where peace really starts to begin. So this afternoon, I'm going to talk about integrating conflict sensitivity and peace promotion in your lessons. All right. So I believe most of us here teaching in senior high school, no? Tama mo ba? A lot of us here are media and information literacy teachers, no? And some are even teachers of other subjects as well, right? So maybe you can quickly put here in your chat box ano yung mga subjects na tinuturo ninyo, no? So we could see it. Okay. Of course, may MIL ba dyan? And are there social studies subjects also here? Meron bang mga teachers ng math dito? Okay. So MIL, digital activism. Okay. How about the others? Ano po mga tinuturo nila para I would know where to focus on in my discussion this afternoon? The teaching profession. Okay. So this is a professional subject, no? Prof Ed subject. Okay. Theories of virtual com. Oh, this is naman in college, no? How about the senior high school teachers here or the ones in basic ed? Yung mga LPTs natin, no? Kasi basically we created this program for you, no? Because PRC requires us to come up with 15 points to renew our license. So we teach campus join, art appreciation, technology. All right. Okay, so let me begin. I think we're all in now. Okay, so our objectives this afternoon, no, is we want to understand the role of the teacher in peace promotion, diba? And what are the principles of peaceful communication, particularly in the classroom? Okay, so a while ago we talked about communication practices in media and how it also appears or works in workplaces. Now, how about in the classroom, no, where you are the teacher, no, is diba, dati, we're the sage on the stage, no? We control everything, but that has been changed, right? So we're now facilitators of learning. Hindi na tayo yung almighty powerful teacher in the classroom. Hindi na tayo ganun. All right. So what are the principles of peaceful communication? How will we integrate peace ed into our various subjects? So let's talk about the role of the teacher. Okay, so I think no, if you're an LPT, alam niyo to no na um the teacher is a planner. So we plan, no, we write our lesson plan, we set out the goals, the objectives, no, and we write even the learning outcomes, what are expected, no? When I teach this, ano bang expected na mangyayari to my learner when I teach this, no? And then so we initiate this. But in order for these lessons, no, um to be successful, okay, inside the classroom, we're also a climate builder, meaning we create a conducive, no, an atmosphere where it's conducive for learning. So I remember, when I was in grade school, that's why naging ano ako, no, I took creative writing and literature. I fell in love with that because my teachers were so lovable, lovely, and takot na takot ako sa math teacher ko noon. Ito sa climate of fear. Pagpasok pa lang yan sa classroom, okay, we were not told to sit down. We were told to just stand up for the like first 15 minutes of her class, and then she would just point, like shooting an armalite as well, and then she throws a number 55 times 7. 65 times 2. It's like we almost fell. We almost had a heart attack. So that was the old time, no? So I grew up in the 80s. So ganun dati, no? So it was, looking back when I'm starting to learn about conflict sensitivity and peace building, I realize ko, what a violent classroom. Di ba, napaka-violent ng classroom na yon. So it wasn't a very good climate to learn math and science. Kaya ayan, napunta ako sa English and literature because my teachers there were lovely. Okay. And again, no, so we're a guide, prompter, and catalyst. So when we say catalyst, we prompt them to think. So we don't just feed and just, okay, basta nabigay natin yung lesson, okay na yon. And one of the problems that we encountered during the pandemic is that it's so hard to prompt, no? It's so hard to guide them because there's this screen in front of us. I miss those times when you could walk around the classroom and tap lightly the shoulder of the learner and ask, okay, what do you think? Ngayon, so now, swerte ka kung nakikinig sa'yo, no? Because maybe they're nakatulog na sila sa klase, sa kama nila, lalo na pag ganitong oras. Okay, so I hope you, as teachers, knowing that we don't want our learners to do that, I hope you're not doing that to me also right now. Okay, so please stay, focus. Okay, focus tayo dito. And we organize our knowledge kasi kailangan may structure, kailangan organize, no? There is a thought process because again, we planned it. And then of course we evaluate, no? That's why at the end of the semester, or at the end of the year, we give them a grade, and then we elevate them or we move them up to the next level. And wag na muna natin pag-usapan yung issue, yung controversy that there is an accusation that teachers are just moving up their learners kahit hindi pa talaga natuto. No? That's an issue. Uy, conflict yan, di ba? So what's that? Masarap pag-aralan yan. But yeah, so these are things that we do. And then most importantly, we're also mediator because we're second parents, no, of our learners in the class. So there are our children. Okay, paminsan sobrang I would notice this in some teachers, no, na they would imbibe the role of a parent too much that um if they become the parent that is that lacks authority, or yung parent na nagsuspoil. Oh, mali naman yun, no? So kailangan parent meron pa ring discipline, may structure. Of course, there's love, but there's structure. So I think you all know this as a teacher, whether even though you're teaching in college, no? In college kasi medyo iba na eh, di ba? Sa college talagang, I remember when I was in UP, talagang bahala kayo sa buhay nyo. You survive on your own, no? It was a very violent kind of education. But because the expectation is you're all adults. Okay, but at the end of the day, we're still all teachers, and we still need to do all of these things. All right. So there's still supposed to be, the role of a peace promoter, is very important to a teacher. So a teacher should be able to illustrate peace as these things, no, as an attitude. So pag sinabing peaceful attitude, okay, so ano ibig sabihin nun? You are um attitude is how we respond things, di ba? So instead of when you're irritated, okay, then you try to come and you try to be calm about it. That's an attitude. Peace as a human value, okay? So of course you don't hindi kayo papalakpakan yung gera, parang buti nga binombahan sila kasi may mga kalaban doon. So no, that's not the That's the negative. That's very negative. So that's not human value of peace. Human value and concept of peace almost the same yan sila. Okay. Peace as an instruction. So again, no, when we talk to our learners, when we give instructions to our learners, when something is disorganized, when you give a very disorganized instruction, that's also a form of violence. Kasi parang you're putting them in a situation wherein they're gonna be stressed, no, and they're gonna be in conflict even within themselves. So kailangan very clear, no? Peace as a principle, of course, and as an aspiration and ideal. So ano ba talaga yung peace? Like we mentioned earlier, it's kind of a abstract concept. What does peace really mean? And I will always say this, that silence is not peace. Okay, silence can be apathy. You know, just because you're not talking doesn't mean that you're for peace. But peace is really being able to know what's going on, and knowing how to mitigate that, and knowing how to resolve that, whatever conflict that is. Okay. So there are four principles of peaceful communication, which actually you can use this na in your subject, okay, when your communication related subjects or language related subjects. But later on, I'll go specifically on the subject. But this one is a general, four general principles of peaceful communication. So there are four. No, it says love your communicative neighbor. Okay. Two, dignify your daily dialogues. Number three, prioritize positivizers in your language use. And four, be a communicative humanizer. So what does that mean? Let's go through it one by one. Love your communicative neighbor. O, di ba? So, hindi lang love your neighbor, but particularly communicative neighbor, meaning yung neighbor na kinakausap mo, no? The ones we are in dialogue with. And by the way, the concept of love your neighbor, or the golden rule, do you know that it's a very common theme among major religions? Let me show you, yeah, proof of that. So, the Hindu Mahabharata said, no, in Hinduism, this is the sum of duty. Do not do unto others which would cause pain unto you. So that's Hinduism. No, that's love your neighbor. Next, no, for Zoroastrian, that nature is only as good when it shall not do unto another whatever is not good for its own self. Okay. See, so very common. Nandiyan pa rin love your neighbor. In Taoism, regard your neighbor's gain as your own gain and your neighbor's loss as your own loss. O, diba? Still, see, caring for your neighbor. In Buddhism, hurt not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful. O, di ba? Huwag mong gawin sa iba yung ayaw mong gawin sa sarili mo. Yun yung translation yan. And it's very common. And do you even know that that's Buddhist? Possibly, di wala. Kasi sa napaka-common na niya na kasabihan, no? We think it's just a belief, but that's what the point is, no? That this belief of loving your neighbor, your communicative neighbor, is not specific to a certain religion. No? It is universal. Okay, so it is not specific or unique to Christianity. So in the New Testament, it said, "All things whatsoever you should wish that men should do you even so to them." But, and of course, in Islam, none of you truly believes until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. So let's start with that. No, when we want to promote peace, no, and knowing that there is a commonality, love is universal among this religion. So the first step, perhaps, no, in our society, so that we could, start parang help mitigate hate speech or discrimination, prejudice, diba? We understand that there's a common theme, okay? There's a common thread that binds all faiths, okay? So that's what we mean by love your communicative neighbor. So it starts with that. Second principle, okay, so coming from that, so when we know that when we are, when we follow the principle of loving your neighbor, then how do we start communicating with them? So we dignify our daily dialogues. No, hirap na I'm saying this, but you know what? I always trip at this. Why? Bakit kaya? Why is this so hard to do? Let me explain. No? So the picture here in front of you is a picture of a road rage, di ba? So alam niyo yung road rage, no? Yung nagkabanggaan or nanahan siya. na overtaken, nagalit ganyan. And this was shown in the recent series called Beef on Netflix, right? And um, let's analyze. Okay, people aren't just angry for no reason. Okay, let's understand that when people are angry, they're not bad people right away. You have to understand where's this coming from. Okay, but you cannot change other people. So the only person that you can really change is yourself. So ako, this is also part of my therapy. No? So I've had, of my own bouts of anger, with all the things that happened to my life. And, my therapist said it starts with self-empathy. Okay. So you go back to yourself and recognize where is this pain coming from and turn this pain into purpose. Okay? Yung discontent, bakit ba sila nagrarally? Kasi may discontent, no? Pero what makes it looks violent and parang no space for communication is when in your discontent you now talk in undignified ways. So what are undignified ways? Diba? Yung magkakas ka na, magagalit ka na, and you would say things that you would regret later on. No, these are normal because we are people. So always the trick is it's a self therapy. So we always go back to self empathy and try to heal the hurts. No, ano ba to? CPD training ba ito or ano, therapy session? Okay. Because that's what this is all about. So peace, it cannot really promote peace if tayo mismo hindi peaceful, no? If we don't even understand how to start going towards peace. And again, as mentioned earlier, you have to understand that there was conflict muna. Okay. All right. So, dignify your dialogue. So, on social media, here's a quick tip, no, coming from one of our partners, OOTD. So, to avoid conflict on social media, may apat na letters, and it reads like the word iwas o iwasan, meaning ikalma ang sarili. O, di ba? Kung may nakita kayo something hurtful or offensive on social media, okay, stop mo na. Ikalma ang sarili, okay. Okay. Wag basta maniwala. Okay, lalo na for example, it's a very emotional news or something, lalo na during the election. No? I think we all felt, in one way or the other, we all felt trapped to this. And then, alamin mo na ang source at konteksto of that news, no? And salain bago mag-share. Okay. So, that is a quick tip, no? Before we react something on social media, to avoid conflict, then we do this. Okay. So again, this is something that we should tell every day. The moment you wake up, iwas, 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 iwas. All right. Yun yung ibig sabihin ng iwas na according to OOTD. That's a framework that they shared with us. Okay. Next is third principle is prioritize positivizers in your language use. What are positivizers? So communicative dignity, okay, can be practiced through the choice of words and phraseologies so that you can convey positive or constructive values. So these are very, just give three examples, but these are very interesting examples, no? Because we use this often. Di ba we say bullet points, killing two birds with one stone, armed with new knowledge. Di ba? These are, at first, there's nothing wrong with that. This is just how we say it, no? I mean, we were born knowing that these are idioms. But in nonviolent communication, okay, one way para to start healing or to transform ourselves is when we try to positivize these words. So instead of saying bullet points, you say key points or dot points. Class, okay, key points natin. Meron pa ako narinig pearl points. Parang, okay, parang mahirap na alala yung pearl points, pero kasi bullets to pearls, di ba? Very creative. But key points or dot points are simple enough to remember. Kasi remember, you're going to change and it's hard to change something that you've been using, since you've been born, di ba? Since nag-aral ka sa school, yan na yung turo sa'yo, bullet points, di ba? But in non-violent communication, that's actually something bullets. Sa atin, normal lang yan, no? But when you talk to somebody who has been in war, people in Afghanistan, people who were, in these areas, makarinigan sila ng word na bullet. Sometimes it could be either two things. It's either they're too desensitized about it, or it could be a trigger for trauma. Diba? It could be a trigger for PTSD. So instead of bullet points, instead of you say key points, instead of killing two birds with one stone, we say feeding two birds with one crumb. O, diba? That is very, I think, if you're teaching children, it's good to start with children, no? Kasi they can easily absorb this right away. Or instead of saying armed with new knowledge, you say equipped with new knowledge. Diba? So these are things, and I'm sure you can find so many because you're creative, your teachers, you can find positivizers in your language use. Now, when we say positivizers, hindi po ito toxic positivity. Oh, I hate toxic positivity. You know what toxic positivity is? Well, toxic positivity is when you avoid talking about negative things because you just want good vibes, no? But this is basically you're telling people that you just want to live in your bubble. And if you're living in your bubble, you don't recognize conflict, you don't acknowledge conflict, you don't even want to hear it, okay? Because you want to be in peace, in your own bubble. So please, good vibes lang, huwag natin pag-usapan yan, that's a downer, ganyan. But again, di ba, like you said, if you're not talking about the conflict, it's really not a genuine way to get peace. Okay. So peace educators, sa totoo lang, are those who think about social justice. Okay. If you're really into peace, you have to think about social justice first. Have to think about equality. You have to think about cooperation, no? Aside from just goodness, kindness, and mutual understanding. Yung sabihin natin, let's agree to disagree. But sometimes that can also be the source of conflict, no? Because there are things that okay, we need to talk about it. So yes, let's agree to disagree, but we have to, lay it out on the table using the analysis tools and find out where we can enter and start to, find resolution points. Okay. So yeah, no, again, no, using positive words is not about toxic positivity. Okay, iba yun. Okay. So just to be clear on that. All right. So how now do we integrate these into our school subjects? Okay. Especially the tools that you have just learned this morning, no? So you learned the timeline, the triangle, the onion, the actor's map, and the onion. So normally, talaga, in the way we teach this, usually the ideal is you really start from timeline to triangle to actor's map to onion. Okay. Yan talaga yung ano. So parang ang kahago naman, no? In Bisaya, parang napaka-long and winding naman. But again, this is a skill, a tool that if you're starting, if you practice it often, it becomes instant. No, you don't have to draw and make diagrams all the time. No, it's if you're used to this lens, you can immediately see this in your head. Okay, and so it's a skill that you can master. Okay, for the rest of your life. No, it's a soft skill. Okay, but we can use these skills, these tools in your actual subjects, in your performance task even. No, for example, in media and information literacy, where I taught no for 6 years no in Ateneo, we integrated conflict sensitivity CSJ tools into making our documentaries. No? So why did we teach that? Because right now every student is a digital creator. Kayo nga, di ba? Profile nyo sa Facebook, digital creator. Sige nga, ano yung mga kinikreate ninyo? Di ba? When you post something, you're already creating digital content. Okay. So especially if you're trying to make money out of this, like making reels, diba? So there is a sense of responsibility dapat because whatever you put out there, you're influencing people, no? You're educating them in a way. So therefore, you should also have a lens on things. So in our performance testing MIL, we use the CSJ tools to help them create a documentary on social issues. So when they use the timeline, no, when they're assigned an SDG perhaps or a problem, like for example, poverty. So they will use the timeline to track, okay, for example, a specific topic on poverty, or let's say a specific topic on climate change, which is, for example, um, uh, greenhouse gases in Davao. Ganyan. So they will now try to look for information sources and arrange that in a timeline, okay? And they will look into gaps. So yung tinuro ni Sir Durf kanina, okay, is looking into an actual news event. But in MIL, how we use is that you can use the timeline tool to chronologically arrange a whole range of resources that talk about a certain conflict, certain topic, certain social issue. Hindi lang siya tungkol sa isang event. Okay. This, by the way, we will give you a more specific training on this, no? Because you're a member of MEM in another training. So ito parang pahapyaw pala. So I hope you get excited about this if you're an MIL teacher. So, and then, so they fact check primary sources, and then they will do the triangle, no, to again to analyze ano ba yung structural and cultural causes, and then they will do the actors map. When doing the actors map, they know now who to interview for their documentary. And when they do the onion, of course, now they can ask what questions can they ask the documentary participant. So that's in MIL. And it's pretty much the same with social sciences. No? So when you're in social sciences, first up, you look at personal development as a subject. Diba? And remember, peace starts from within. So personal development is a very important subject for peace integration be, considered. So if you start timeline, you can plot milestones, identify low and high moments. In triangle, you can pick the most important turning point and analyze ano ba yung cultural and structural causes there. And then you do the actor's map of your life, or the key influential people that is causing this conflict in your life, di ba? And then you can also analyze the position, interests, or needs of these people in your life that are part of your conflict. That way you can, analyze your relationships. Okay, di ba? So that's personal development. In UCSP, I think it's almost the same with MIL, no? Because UCSP is a social study subject, so the subject is expected to discuss issues affecting the globe, right? So tama lang that when they do the advocacy performance test, they do the same thing as what MIL can do with the CSJ tools. Okay. History is a very important subject wherein you can really integrate these. Because there are two ways when history is taught. No, it could be taught in a narrow perspective, and sometimes, but it should be taught or in a broad perspective. So the narrow perspective, you present the events in isolation. So usually ito yung nagtagis na natin, no, in school. Now the history, that's why we're all bored with history, because it's just like a timeline of events. No, it's so isolated. So like the Philippine history is parang told to us like the history of Southeast Asia and America wasn't really, did not have an effect on us. Diba? So understanding history should really be taught in a broad perspective. Okay. And of course, the CSJ tools can be used in teaching history. So through timeline, of course, that's the most common thing. No, you present the events chronologically, but what the timeline can do this time, no, not your typical timeline in the old way of teaching history. This time, you can identify the gaps. Kasi ang next step ng timeline is triangle. So you identify the gaps. Bakit? Okay, why did this happen? Now you look at history. Why did this happen? Why did this, for example, why did EDSA happen? Ganyan. So they tap the timeline, and now you can see the gaps here. And now they can proceed to using the triangle, analyzing the structural and cultural causes why EDSA happened, di ba? And now they can look into actors map, and then they will realize, no, when your learners do the actors map, why are the same people from 1986 still in power right now, di ba? So, they can now start to think, bakit kaya? Bakit parang nag-change siya ng position, interest, and needs nung 1986, itong sinabi niya publicly. And now, in 2023, iba na yung sinabi niya. So, this is really, the CSJ tools are a really great way for us to analyze history, because history, it's not something to say na, tapos na yan, it's history, past is past. No, your past brings you now where you are, and it will essentially bring you to your future. Okay, so whatever you're going to decide now because of what happened to you in the past, okay, will bring you to your future. That's why history is very important. Okay, religion, of course, it's a subject that should contribute to peace building. Pero no, unfortunately, because of fanaticism sometimes, no, so there are a lot of conflicts even among different faiths, di ba? Even in let's say even in Christianity, meron pang magkaiba, meron pang minsan conflict ang Catholic Church and evangelical churches, di ba? And so on. So but remember, peace should be the central value of religion, okay? So bakit ba meron differences? Again, because maybe there are historical context to this, okay? So that's why they need to look into that. No? So you should adopt a child-centered approach to this. We should identify the spiritual needs of children. So I think these are all what I've written here in the slide are all like obvious things that we should do, but unfortunately, these are not commonly practiced. Kasi nga in the classroom, usually our objective is just to give the lesson and that's it, right? Okay, so Humanities, of course, I think it's like the easiest way to talk about peace, no? But somehow it can become shallow or become too superficial. Because, for example, in humanities, you can have something artistic, like make a poster or make a song, and these are all really good prompts. Okay, but and art has always been used to promote peace, no? And ang sometimes ang kulang lang dyan is that when we ask these learners to make these posters, we always need to ask, saan nanggagaling yung idea nila in making these posters? Because if you did not do conflict sensitive analysis, whatever they're going to put on their poster, puro dove lang yan. Di ba? Mapuno yan ng dove kasi peace. Di ba? So, walang laman, walang essence, walang substance because they really did not analyze conflict before they can really, create an artistic depiction of peace. Even in songs, di ba? Yung mga rally songs or yung mga songs that talk about social justice, these are peace songs, by the way. They're not angry songs, but they're songs crying out injustice because if you cannot solve social injustice, there's really no peace. Okay? Peace in math, like I said, no? Math is somehow a violent subject, at least in my experience. But how can we make this, how can we make teaching math peacefully, okay? So I hope may mga math teacher dito, but here's just a simple tip, no, for math teachers. No, if you use the calculations, no, and you connect these calculations, this formula into real life scenarios, okay, di ba? Then that's when we can really integrate these education. So peace should not just be relegated to arts and literature and even sports. No, hindi ko na na-include in sports dito. But math, okay, should also be a subject wherein there is peace. It may not be an actual topic for peace, but cultural understanding, okay, where the different, studying different mathematical systems, okay, that's actually a step towards peace building already or peace promotion. Okay, science, okay, there's also some conflict in science or some possible lack of peace promotion in science. Why? Because there is a hidden curriculum in science, diba? So the new imperialism or Newtonian mechanistic paradigm of science tells us that science is pure knowledge. Science is the only true knowledge. Science does not recognize human values, right? And learning science only mostly accumulation. It's immeasurable. If anything is found to be immeasurable, like peace, no, it's such an immeasurable concept, forget about it, diba? That's the Newtonian way. So how is science becoming a platform for violence? So when there is environmental pollution, kasi we need to, you want your power. Nawalan tayo ng power kanina, nawalan internet. Tapos ayaw nyo magputol ng puno para ibuo yung planta. Choose Wi-Fi or puno. Oh, sabi niya, gusto ko ng Wi-Fi ko. So these are things, but that is a really an old way of presenting things, no? So that is new imperialism because there's not only parang this or that. No, we can combine these two if only really do some critical thinking and analysis. Where can we find connecting points and bridging points? Okay, so yeah, no. So make science a friendly subject, show that science is concerned with the needs and interests of mankind and human welfare. Di ba? Sa kaka-lipstick mo, yung pala, ang dami na palang pinatay na hayop dahil sa lipstick mo. Di ba? Maganda ka, pero, di ba? Naalala ko tuloy si Rocket sa Guardians of the Galaxy. Di ba yung mga no? So, for the sake of technology, a lot has been sacrificed. But scientists will say, oh, but humans, okay, if we don't do this technology, we won't have medicine. So, but it should not be that way. That's dualism, as explained by Sir Durf a while ago. All right, so in summary, the teacher plays a major role in CSPP in the classroom, okay? So conflict-sensitive communication is a lens for critical thinking, okay? And we really cannot genuinely promote peace, no? If we are not sensitive to conflict.